Okay, episode 263 Off-World Vehicles. Hello, welcome. Hope everyone's doing okay. I think I've lost the run of myself now. It looks like I'm doing something with a browser now as well. I decided my face was too big when it was just my face on the video. So yeah, episode 262 is the first time that I've done a video recording of myself doing these. So I'm recording the audio separately, and I have quite an interesting job synchronizing it. But I found that the audio from the Logitech 4K camera I have is rubbish. So there you go. I also noticed I was using the Logitech Capture software, and I was getting a strange flashing line at the bottom of the screen. So I'm now using OBS software, which allows me to do fancy things like multiple sources and screen capturing and things like that. So maybe I have to describe less exactly what I'm looking at, and just talk about what I'm doing, I suppose. So yeah. So this episode is about an interesting. It's an interesting phrase, and I find it quite strange. So this is an article that's in Popular Mechanics, and it's quite mind-blowing stuff, this, I have to say. I'm not talking about the Littlewoods Island and the Michelle Keegan burnout. It's that ruched blouse in black. I do wonder about how Google and other advertising bought these profile people. But I can say without fear of contradiction, I'm not looking for a black blouse at the moment. But it's a little odd, unusual size, flirty wrap silhouette. Okay. Anyway, no, so that's that's just a distraction. But I do apologise, whatever adverts may appear whilst looking at this. So yeah, Popular Mechanics, quite a popular place for information that is usually pretty reliable, I think, in many ways. But the phrase, I was a little bit taken aback. Off-world vehicles not made on this earth. Sort of repeating itself a little bit. That's the first thing. Off-world vehicles not made on this earth. Well, that's the definition of an off-world vehicle, isn't it? It's not made here. Or does it mean it could have been made here, but it's now off-world? Well, that's a good point now. I'm starting to think this through a lot more. But anyway, so the tagline is bombshell. The government's once clandestine UFO program will reveal findings on unexplained materials and crashes. Now that's interesting because that bombshell isn't too bad. I can go with that. Unexplained materials, crashes. Yeah, that's okay. UFO. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's little green men. I did struggle a little bit with the off-world vehicles, so. And I think a lot of people maybe who's listening, watching this, you're very familiar probably with these. There was 3 videos that somehow got leaked online and have become, shall we say, confirmed as real by the Navy. I think it's a division of the Navy who investigates these things. If I scroll down, I think it's the Office of Naval Intelligence is where the American government have decided to put their UFO unit. I'm not sure why. Deals with classified matters, even though the department isn't itself classified. So it's quite interesting that something that's in the sky, primarily, I'm assuming primarily, is dealt with by the Navy. And I do wonder, is that a bit like, when the police, I know something happens, an incident, say with the police or some official body, and it needs investigating. Well, they don't let the local police get involved. They bring someone else in, a different force or somebody independent. So maybe there's an implication here that the Navy should investigate things that happen in the air, And there's a lot of talk about unmanned aerial vehicles, which I think is a relatively new term. We do have the technology now to create these things, and they can do all sorts of fancy stuff. They can fly all around the world at different altitudes. Not always. They'd have to be piloted. That's the point. You don't need somebody in them. That's the first thing. And secondly, well, some of them need to be piloted by somebody in somewhere else that can just program it, tell it what to do, has a level of autonomy, and away it goes. So I mean that's perfectly doable. So the headline itself would imply something around aliens, And as a tagline, it's I think it was an astrophysicist who's consulted on the UFO program. He's confirmed the government possesses materials from off-world vehicles not made on this earth. And it's a funny thing to say, really. I wouldn't have expected an astrophysicist to say that. But then again, it's a bit like maybe you want to talk about things that possibly have come from somewhere else, not on the Earth, okay? But you don't want to say aliens or little green men or, things like that. So maybe in this instance, it's like the story I was once told. I knew somebody who had a problem with bats. They had a problem, they had a bat in their house and they panicked. It somehow got in. I mean, it was minding its own business. Now, I know they carry disease and they're responsible, I think, they're not they're responsible, they're connected, shall we say, to the coronavirus outbreak. So they're not great creatures, but this particular person, they was in America, and they had one in a room in the house, and they completely freaked out. They completely panicked. They didn't know what to do. So essentially, what happened was, I don't know. They was in the dining room or something, and they locked the doors of the room so they couldn't fly out. But they didn't know what to do, So they actually rang the local sheriff's office. It wasn't the emergency line, because obviously it's not an emergency, is it? But they rang the local sheriff's office anyway, and they said, we've got this problem. And it was quite interesting. It was maybe because it's a thing down in the country in America, in a rural area. But they said, oh yeah, there is somebody who can help you with that problem. And all through the conversation, the woman in the sheriff's office was trying to avoid saying Batman. That there's a guy who can help you with that, that problem you have, but she didn't want to say Batman, because you say Batman and there's some ridiculous connotations with that, isn't there, so. And I think maybe this guy, this astrophysicist who's worked with this UFO program, maybe he felt even mentioning a word about alien could be a problem, so it's an interesting sentence. Off-world vehicles not made on this earth. It's dancing around a little bit, isn't it? So, so there's 3 videos now. I'm not gonna play these 3 videos back, because they're not aliens. That's the first thing. You could tenuously argue that they are UFOs, and I know there's a lot of people that be jumping up and down thinking, these are definitely, and the Navy said it is UFOs, and they're becoming notorious. And they're quite old. I mean, they're from, I think, November the 15th or something, or the 14th in 2004. So they're getting on for nearly 16 years old, these videos. And it's interesting, when you look at them online on YouTube, they've really built them up like, this is the F-18 Hornet, and it's the most advanced, forward-looking infrared camera, the best tracking in the world, and even that couldn't keep up, And I mean, that's bigging it up a bit too much. And I do get annoyed at how there's never any good quality. It's always a blob, and this is blob, and what does a blob look like, If we can't work out what a blob looks like, then it has to be an alien, or, well, we can't identify it, can we? And I mean, you could argue these 3 videos are definitely unidentified, because we don't know for sure what they are. But I have a pretty good idea what they are. And I think the Navy also has a pretty good idea what they are. So when they enter the public domain, and I think the Navy, they're like, who knows what they investigate and what they don't release because it's classified. But I think in these instances, these 3 videos were probably the best ones to have been leaked, because there is nothing there, you can say that's certainly not a national security issue, and it's certainly nothing. You don't see little green men flying around in a flying saucer. So essentially, the 3 videos, and like I said, I'm not going to go through them, but they're infrared, and infrared is notorious that there's all sorts of things going on with infrared. It doesn't look like we see things. That's the first thing. It's seeing heat. That's what it's seeing, essentially. And also there's limitations with how these cameras move and rotate and everything else. And I know there's guys who've studied this online, and they pretty much got explanations for all 3. I think the first 2 is basically a plane. The first one's a commercial airliner. The second one's a fighter jet plume. The third one is probably a weather balloon that's it looks like it's going faster than it is, and I think it's just to do with the angle, and also to do with the wind speed. And if the plane is drifting or it's moving at a certain speed and it's keeping up yourself, and also doing the same speed, it's incredible, Anyway, the 3 videos are rubbish. They don't give us any insight into what was the phrase again? Off-world vehicles not made on this earth. But then that's the backstory to this, because there's been a new report now in the New York Times, and basically, you know, and I think it comes down to money in America. These things are always about money, and essentially there was a budget for this part of this, you know, government department that was used to investigate these shall we say unmanned UAV, whatever, unmanned aerial vehicle, unexplained aerial phenomenon by the Navy, by the way. But you know, and I think over the years they've been allowed to have funding. When money's been good, I think they've been allowed the money. Money's not so good. Yeah, we won't really bother with that. You know, I mean, the fear is, this is the biggest fear that the Navy has, that the US government have, is it's not little green men, it's not aliens, it's China, it's Russia, it's somebody getting the edge on technology that they should have, that they should be the best in the world. They have a very big responsible job, like any multinational company, like any country, any global power, global superpower. You need to be ahead of the game. You need to be the best, you know, at what you do, and that's where this comes in. So it's a very small number. I mean, you consider how much the sky is looked at by commercial airliners, by, you know, the amount of air travel and everything else. The actual number of these sightings by military or other sources is extremely small, you know, but it still needs some investigation, especially if it's near a military airbase, when it's near somewhere that, you know, potentially someone's flying a craft right close to an airbase, you know, what could they be doing? They could be having a look-see around, they could be deciding, stealing technology or whatever, you know. I think it's unlikely that aliens would travel through the vastness of space, whether on an unmanned craft or whatever, to buzz a few bases and then disappear again. Or, you know, it doesn't make any sense, you know. There's definitely life out there. Definitely is, you know, somewhere in the vastness of space. And there's probably some pretty intelligent life. Are we the most intelligent there is? It's hard to tell, you know. But anyway, the point is, I don't think that's the issue at stake here. The issue is, are they flying these little UAVs around the place, but not making them presence known, which is quite interesting, I think. Considering for the last, 100 years, we've been pushing out signals. Incidentally, we've been pushing out signals into outer space, then you'd sort of think that, they have some information on how to contact us. And I know English is a very difficult language to learn, but when you look at binary and the language of computers, there's no, they would be able to, actually. I should have turned on my devices off, shouldn't I? They would actually be able to do some form of, shall we say, interpretation, so that they can produce, documents, a signal, a broadcast, where they talk to us, and that's that definitely hasn't happened, So, so anyway, I understand from this article that, it's public money, isn't it? Public money in America is going into these departments, and apparently they're going to give us more information. There will be more standardised collection and reporting on sightings of UAVs, and they will publicly divulge at least some of its findings twice a year. So here we are, boom, we've got to the bottom of this, So they're spending all you American taxpayers' money on this. More adverts here. I think taxpayers' money on, what essentially is investigating some oddities, and very few, oddities, phenomena, UAV, whatever, we don't know. Unexplained aerial phenomena is probably the best way to describe it. And I think it makes perfect sense, We live in an information age, and it should be public. It should be, you could argue for the greater good, but I do believe, it's not alien focused, I think if they did have some evidence of aliens, I think that'd be nice. But the reality is, I think there was a comment that I heard made, that, extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. I think it was Carl Sagan said that. So, if you're claiming aliens are going across the vastness of space, pretty much having to defeat some of the laws of physics to get here. and then you're saying they've done that and they're repeatedly doing it. Well, you really need some pretty incredible evidence to back that up. And I suppose it's the old adage: if you believe in aliens, any evidence is enough. If you don't, then no evidence is enough. But and it's nice to see a bit of openness now coming out of the Navy, the American Navy, to see what they're going to tell us. And I will be interested. I will be reading and certainly seeing what comes out of there. I mean, UAVs seem an obvious thing to us nowadays. I mean, we always assumed UFOs would have to have pilots, because our planes, our craft, our ships, our cars had somebody to steer and the bloody thing, Whereas now we have our own UAVs, we sort of go, we said humans couldn't survive, the acceleration, whatever. Well, maybe we don't need to put humans into these craft, and we can send them off. These. So that's definitely more plausible. But I'm just going to have a quick look here now. So the astrophysicist who consulted on the UFO confirms the government possesses materials from off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. Okay, I'm going to click on this. I do apologise for the adverts, and it looks like the New York Times. So I might not get much out of this. I'm going to do like people to subscribe, So, and let's have a quick scroll down here. This is something else. This is no longer in the shadows, apparently. Pentagon's UFO unit will make some findings public. Sounds good. So that's great news. And I just wonder where this evidence of these off-world, and I think it's there you go. So Louis Elizondo, I think that's the guy there. Yeah, he's a former military intelligence official. And also the previous director of the program. Wow, that is pretty good. When he resigned in October 2017 after 10 years. And it's confirmed the new task force evolved from the Advanced Aerospace Program. It's no longer going to hide in the shadows. Okay, he didn't say there was alien stuff. Did he? He's not an astrophysicist, is he? Money involved. China or Russia. Okay, so no, he didn't say there was anything really. I've got to scroll down and find out who did. I thought it was him. So no, so he's basically saying it's bringing it out of the shadows, new transparency. He is a small group of former government officials who are convinced that objects of undetermined origin have crashed on Earth with materials retrieved for study. Okay, well that's alright, yeah. Okay, okay, so, I didn't see anything about, just scrolling down a bit more, okay, Eric Davis, we couldn't make it ourselves, so it was Eric Davis, is an astrophysicist. He worked as a subcontractor and then a consultant for the Pentagon since 2007, so the examination of materials would imply that they hadn't come from the Earth. Well, that's very interesting, so, so there's obviously people in the connected with the program feel that there's more to this than meets the eye, and then we might have otherworld explanations. I mean, there are things that land on the Earth from other planets. We have had, I think, meteorites, Martian meteorites, and things like that. So it's not uncommon for us to have materials on the Earth that have come from, that are extraterrestrial in origin. So I think this will be interesting. I mean. I'm hopeful it'll be published online, won't it, when it happens? I mean, we're all still technically locked down, aren't we? I'm still stuck in my office. Seems to live here at the moment. But so some of the materials they tested seem to be of alien origin. Boom, extraterrestrial origin? Sorry, no. Otherworldly origin. But I think that the China-Russia connection is more of a concern. That maybe some technological leap has been made that has allowed them to conduct this sort of activity, I mean, you look at the nuclear weapon, I suppose, program that America did towards the end of the war, and that was also eventually the Russians caught up not long after. I mean, that was otherworldly. That was like, from something out of a sci-fi novel. They were harnessing something so incredibly powerful. I don't know if harness is the right word, but anyway, it became, it was just incredible, and not obviously not in a good way. What a weapon the nuclear bomb is. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I know nuclear fusion is something that there's been a lot of work towards. I think I think nuclear reactors at the moment are fission, nuclear fission, but I think it's fusion that occurs in the sun, and is way better, more efficient. And if you start using that sort of power, maybe you can make a little a little spaceship, a little not I use the word spaceship. Make a little UAV that can dart around the place and be caught by some very excited military pilots.